in the shadowed halls of Blackwood Manor. Nestled amid the misty moors of 1930s Devonshire, a scream shattered the midnight silence. Sir Reginald Blackwood, the enigmatic industrialist, lay lifeless in his locked study, a dagger plunged into his chest. The room's heavy oak door was bolted from within, windows barred against the howling wind. Scrawled in blood on the desk was a cryptic note: "The dark mystery claims its due." No footprints marred the Persian rug, no weapon save the antique blade from his own collection. Whispers of a family curse echoed through the corridors, drawing the curious gaze of Belgium's finest detective. What spectral force had struck? Chapter 1. The Shadowed Arrival. The fog draped itself over the Devonshire moors like a conspirator's cloak, muffling the crunch of gravel beneath the wheels of Hercule Poirot's taxi as it wound toward Blackwood Manor. It was November 1935, and the air carried the chill of secrets long buried. The manor loomed ahead, its Gothic spires piercing the mist, windows glowing faintly like the eyes of a beast roused from slumber. A scream had shattered the midnight calm hours earlier, and now, as the clock neared 1 in the morning, the house seemed to hold its breath, awaiting the arrival of Belgium's most renowned detective. Poirot adjusted his immaculate overcoat, his sharp green eyes scanning the silhouette of the manor. "Mon Dieu," he murmured to his driver, "this place, it has the air of a tragedy already written." The driver, a local man with a weathered face, merely nodded, muttering about the Blackwood curse, a tale of spectral vengeance whispered in village taverns. Poirot dismissed it with a flick of his gloved hand. "Curses, bah! The little grey cells, they do not quiver at such nonsense." At the manor's iron gates, Inspector Japper waited, his trench coat damp with mist, his face etched with the weariness of a man who had seen too many crimes. "Poirot, old chap, you've landed in a proper mess," he said, shaking the detective's hand. "Sir Reginald Blackwood, dead in his study. Stabbed through the heart, door locked from the inside, windows barred. No footprints, no fingerprints, just a blasted note in blood. The dark mystery claims its due. The family's in a tizzy, swearing it's their cursed ancestor at work." Poirot's moustache twitched, a sign his mind was already at work. "A locked room, mon ami. This is a puzzle for Hercule Poirot. Curses are but shadows cast by human deceit. Lead on." The great oak doors of Blackwood Manor creaked open, revealing a cavernous hall adorned with portraits of stern-faced Blackwoods, their eyes seeming to follow the visitors. The air was heavy with the scent of polished wood and something sharper. Fear, perhaps. A chandelier flickered overhead, casting jagged shadows across the marble floor. Japp led Poirot to the drawing room, where the household had gathered, their faces a gallery of grief, suspicion, and barely concealed rage. Lady Evelyn Blackwood, the widow, sat rigidly on a velvet chaise, her silver hair pinned elegantly despite the hour. Her pale blue eyes, red-rimmed from tears or artifice, met Poirot's with a flicker of defiance. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice smooth as silk yet edged with strain, "my husband was a man of secrets, but this is beyond comprehension. The dark mystery, our family's curse, it has struck again." "Madame," Poirot replied, bowing slightly, "I assure you the incomprehensible becomes clear when one observes with precision. Tell me of this curse." She hesitated, clutching a lace handkerchief. "It began centuries ago, with Sir Alaric Blackwood, who dabbled in forbidden rites. They say he summoned a shadow, a vengeful spirit bound to punish our line for its sins. Reginald was obsessed with it, collecting artifacts, studying old texts. He feared it, yet mocked it. Jonathan Blackwood, the victim's son, paced before the fireplace, his youthful face flushed with anger. At 25, he had the lean build of a man accustomed to riding and the reckless air of one burdened by expectation. "Curse be damned!" he snapped, his voice cutting through the room. "Father was murdered by someone here, not some ghost. He had enemies, business rivals, betrayed friends. Look to Hargrove, his so-called partner." Victor Hargrove, a burly man in his 50s with a face like weathered granite, stood in the corner, his arms crossed. His tailored suit did little to soften his rough demeanour, and his dark eyes glinted with barely suppressed fury. "Watch your tongue, boy," he growled. "Reginald and I had our differences, yes. He owed me a fortune, millions tied up in failing ventures. But I didn't stick a knife in him. I was in London till noon yesterday." Poirot's gaze shifted to the final figure, Miss Clara Winters, the maid, who hovered near the door. Her auburn hair was tucked neatly beneath a cap, but her hands trembled as she smoothed her apron. Her wide hazel eyes darted nervously, avoiding contact. "Mademoiselle," Poirot said gently, "you were close to Sir Reginald, no? You saw much in this house." Clara flushed, her voice barely a whisper. "He was kind to me, sir, but lately he was troubled, kept to his study, muttering about betrayal." Pause for 2 seconds, let Clara's hesitation sink in, hinting at hidden knowledge. Poirot's method was already unfolding. Observe the smallest details, question the unspoken, deduce the truth. He requested to see the crime scene, and Japp led him to the study, a heavy door at the end of a dimly lit corridor. The room was a fortress of oak and iron, its single door bolted from within, the key still in the lock. 3 tall windows, barred and shuttered, admitted no light. A Persian rug lay pristine, unmarred by footprints. At the centre, Sir Reginald's body had been removed, but a dark stain marked the floor where he had fallen, an antique dagger from his own collection, its grim centrepiece. Poirot knelt, examining the desk. The blood-scrawled note was gone, taken for evidence, but Japp described it vividly. Jagged letters, as if written in haste or madness. "The dark mystery claims its due," Poirot repeated softly. "A theatrical touch, no, but theatre requires a stagehand." He noted the room's details. A faint scent of lavender, perhaps from a woman's perfume, a single glass of brandy, half drunk, a fireplace with cold ashes. A bookshelf lined one wall, its volumes undisturbed save for one, a leather-bound tome on occult lore, slightly askew. Poirot's fingers traced its spine, but he found no hidden mechanism. Yet, pause for 3 seconds, build anticipation around the book's significance. Returning to the drawing room, Poirot began his questioning, his tone polite but relentless. "Madame Blackwood, where were you at midnight, when the scream was heard?" Lady Evelyn stiffened. "In my chambers, alone. I heard the cry and rushed to the study, but the door was locked. Jonathan broke it down." Jonathan nodded. "I was in the billiard room, smoking. Clara screamed first. She found him." Clara clutched her apron. "I went to bring Sir Reginald his tea. The door was locked, but I heard a thud. I called out, then screamed when no answer came." Hargrove snorted. "I arrived from London this morning. I was nowhere near this cursed place last night." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "And yet, monsieur, you are here now, drawn to the scene. Curious, no?" The room grew tense, each suspect eyeing the others. Motives emerged like shadows in the fog. Lady Evelyn, perhaps scorned by her husband's rumoured affairs. Jonathan, eager for his inheritance. Hargrove, entangled in a crumbling business empire. Clara, privy to secrets a maid should not know. Sir Reginald, Poirot learned, was a man of contradictions. A ruthless industrialist who crushed rivals, yet a scholar of the occult, haunted by his family's past. His death, in a locked room, with a cryptic note, suggested a killer who knew the manor's secrets and its legends. Pause for 2 seconds. Let the suspect's motives simmer. As the clock struck 2, the house seemed to groan under its own weight. Poirot requested a tour of the grounds, suspecting the manor held more than it revealed. Japp led him through the gardens, where skeletal trees clawed at the sky. A stone circle, half buried in the earth, caught Poirot's eye. Runes etched into the rocks, matching descriptions of the Blackwood curse. A relic of superstition, he mused, or a stage for deception. Back inside, Poirot lingered in the corridor, his ears catching a faint scratching behind the walls. "Monsieur Japp, do you hear?" he whispered. Japp frowned, hearing nothing, but Poirot's senses were sharper. He tapped the panelling, searching for a hollow sound. The manor was old, riddled with secrets, perhaps passages known only to a few. Pause for 3 seconds, heighten the scratching sound for audio effect. Returning to the drawing room, Poirot addressed the group, planting a seed of unease. The killer. They are clever, using this dark mystery to obscure their crime. But Hercule Poirot sees through shadows. Tomorrow, we dig deeper. The suspects dispersed, their footsteps echoing in the silent house. Poirot retired to his guest room, but sleep eluded him. His little grey cells churned, piecing together the lavender scent, the pristine rug, the askew book. A red herring, perhaps, the curse itself, designed to distract. Or was it the locked room, defying logic? As he blew out his candle, a floorboard creaked outside his door. His hand tightened on his walking stick. Then, from the depths of the manor, came a chilling whisper, like a voice from the grave. The dark mystery sees all. The words hung in the air, and Poirot's heart, though disciplined, quickened. Who or what lurked in the shadows? Chapter 2. Whispers of the Past. The morning sun struggled through the fog, casting a sickly pallor over Blackwood Manor. Hercule Poirot stood at the edge of the drawing-room, his polished shoes gleaming against the worn parquet floor, his keen eyes studying the suspects gathered before him. The air was thick with unspoken accusations, the weight of Sir Reginald Blackwood's murder pressing down like the damp Devonshire mist outside. The chilling whisper from the previous night lingered in Poirot's mind, but he dismissed it as a trick of the house, or a human hand. "The little grey cells," he murmured to himself. "They unravel even the cleverest masquerade." Inspector Japp, nursing a cup of tepid tea, cleared his throat. "Right, Poirot. We've got a locked-room murder, a cryptic note, and a house full of nervous types. Where do we start?" Poirot's moustache twitched, a sign of his mind's machinery in motion. "We begin, mon ami, with the victim. To understand the crime, we must understand Sir Reginald, his life, his enemies, his secrets. And this dark mystery curse, it is a shadow we must pierce with facts." He turned to the suspects, who sat or stood in uneasy tableau. Lady Evelyn Blackwood perched on a high-backed chair, her elegant black mourning dress contrasting sharply with her pale complexion. Her fingers toyed with a pearl brooch, betraying a nervous energy beneath her composed facade. Jonathan Blackwood leaned against the mantelpiece, his dark suit rumpled, a cigarette burning forgotten between his fingers. Victor Hargrove, the late Sir Reginald's business partner, loomed near the window, his broad shoulders blocking the weak light, his face a mask of impatience. Miss Clara Winters, the maid, hovered near the tea-tray, her hands trembling as she poured, her eyes darting to every sound. "Madame Blackwood," Poirot began, his voice smooth yet commanding, "tell me of your husband. What manner of man was Sir Reginald, and why did he fear this curse?" Lady Evelyn's lips tightened, her gaze flickering to the portrait above the fireplace. A stern Sir Reginald, painted in his prime, his eyes cold and calculating. "My husband was a titan of industry, Monsieur Poirot. Steel, railways, shipping. He built an empire from nothing. But he was ruthless. He crushed competitors, broke partnerships, and made enemies. Lately, he grew obsessed with our family's legend, the dark mystery. It began with Sir Alaric Blackwood in 1763, who, they say, conducted occult rituals in the Moor's stone circle. He summoned a shadow, a vengeful spirit that swore to punish the Blackwoods for their greed. Reginald collected artifacts, old grimoires, even that dagger. Her voice broke, and she pressed her handkerchief to her lips. He believed the curse was real, that it watched him. Pause for 3 seconds. Emphasize her trembling voice for audio effect. Jonathan snorted, flicking ash into the grate. "Poppycock, mother! Father wasn't killed by a ghost. He was murdered for his money, or his betrayals. I stand to inherit half the estate, but Hargrove's been sniffing around, claiming father owed him millions." His eyes blazed at Hargrove, who bristled but said nothing. Poirot's gaze shifted to the business partner. "Monsieur Hargrove, what is this debt you claim?" Hargrove's voice was gravelly, laced with resentment. "Reginald and I built Blackwood Steel together. I sank my fortune into it, but he mismanaged funds, made reckless deals. He owed me £3 million, threatened to cut me out entirely when I pressed him. We argued 2 days ago in London, but I swear I was there when he died. Check the train records." Clara, who had been silent, dropped a teaspoon with a clatter. All eyes turned to her, and she flushed scarlet. I'm sorry, sir," she stammered, addressing Poirot. "Sir Reginald, he was kind to me, gave me this position when I had nothing. But these last weeks he was different. Kept to his study, muttering about betrayal, locking himself in. Once I heard him shout, 'The shadow knows!' I thought he meant the curse." Poirot's eyes narrowed, catching the tremor in her voice. "Mademoiselle, you are close to the household. Did you notice anything unusual the night of the murder?" She hesitated, her fingers twisting her apron. "Only the scream, sir. I was in the kitchen, preparing his tea. The house felt wrong, like it was watching." Pause for 2 seconds. Let her cryptic words hang, hinting at unease. Poirot excused himself to re-examine the study, Japp trailing behind. The room remained as it was. The heavy oak door, bolted from within, the barred windows untouched, the blood-stained rug where Sir Reginald had fallen, pierced by his own antique dagger. Poirot knelt, his gloved fingers tracing the desk's edge. The blood-scrawled note. The dark mystery claims. Its due had been taken for analysis, but Japp had sketched its jagged script. Poirot inhaled deeply, detecting again the faint lavender scent, now mingling with the stale air of tragedy. He moved to the bookshelf, where the occult tome still sat askew. Flipping through its brittle pages, he found notes in Sir Reginald's hand, sketches of runes, references to the Shadow's price. A red herring, perhaps, designed to fuel the curse narrative? Or a clue to the killer's mind? Pause for 3 seconds, slow narration to mimic Poirot's careful inspection. Returning to the desk, Poirot noticed a faint scratch on the lock, barely visible. "Interesting," he murmured. "The door was bolted, yet this mark suggests tampering. But how? With the key inside?" He examined the dagger's display case, now empty save for a velvet lining. No fingerprints, Japp confirmed, but the blade had been wiped clean, too clean for a frenzied crime. Back in the drawing room, Poirot probed further, his questions like darts, seeking a target. "Monsieur Jonathan, you broke down the door. Describe what you saw." Jonathan stubbed out his cigarette, his jaw tight. Clara screamed. "I ran from the billiard room. The study door was locked, so I shouldered it open. Father was slumped over the desk, dagger in his chest, blood everywhere. That note, it was like something from a nightmare." Lady Evelyn interjected, her voice sharp. "It was the curse, I tell you. Reginald mocked it, and it struck him down." Hargrove laughed bitterly. "Or someone used the curse to cover their tracks. Look to the boy. He's desperate for cash to cover his gambling debts." Jonathan lunged, but Japp restrained him. "Enough," the inspector barked. "Poirot, what's your take?" Poirot paced, his hands clasped behind his back. "The locked room is a puzzle, but not insoluble. The lavender scent, the clean dagger, the scratched lock, these are threads in a tapestry of deceit. Someone in this house knows more than they say." Pause for 2 seconds. Build tension as Poirot's words sink in. As noon approached, the household dispersed for luncheon, but the atmosphere remained charged. Poirot requested a private word with Clara, sensing her unease. In the quiet of the pantry, she spoke haltingly. "Sir Reginald, he trusted me. Once, he showed me a hidden drawer in his desk, full of papers. He said they'd ruin someone if they got out." "Papers?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "And where is this drawer?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Under the blotter, a false panel, but I never looked inside." Poirot returned to the study alone, finding the drawer as described. Inside was a ledger, its entries cryptic but damning. Some siphoned from Blackwood steel, names of rivals bribed, a recent will change favouring Jonathan over Lady Evelyn. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, "a motive for all, perhaps." Pause for 3 seconds. Emphasize the ledger's significance with a soft gasp effect. He summoned the suspects, revealing the ledger's existence without disclosing its contents. Lady Evelyn gasped, her hand flying to her throat. "Reginald kept secrets even from me." Jonathan flushed. "I knew nothing of a new will." Hargrove smirked. "Typical Blackwood treachery. He was bleeding the company dry." Clara's eyes widened, but she said nothing, her silence louder than words. Poirot observed their reactions, planting a seed of doubt. "This ledger, it is a map of motives, but the method, that is the key. How does one enter a locked room and leave no trace?" As evening fell, the manor's shadows deepened. Poirot strolled the grounds, his mind dissecting the clues. The lavender scent, possibly Lady Evelyn's perfume or Clara's. The scratched lock suggesting a tool. The ledger, pointing to greed or betrayal. The curse, he suspected, was a convenient mask exploited by a killer to sow fear. Pause for 2 seconds, let the manor's eerie quiet build suspense. Dinner was a tense affair, the clink of silverware punctuated by strained silence. Lady Evelyn recounted more of the curse. The shadow strikes without warning, leaving no mark but death. Jonathan scoffed, Hargrove glowered, and Clara excused herself, claiming illness. Poirot retired to the library, poring over the occult tome. A folded letter slipped from its pages, written in Sir Reginald's hand. "If I die, it is no spirit, but a traitor among us." A clue, or another diversion? As midnight approached, the house groaned under a rising wind. Poirot stepped into the corridor, his candle casting flickering shadows. The scratching from the previous night returned, louder now, emanating from the study's wall. He pressed his ear to the panelling, heart steady despite the eerie sound. "Not a ghost," he whispered, "but a secret waiting to be uncovered." Suddenly, a hidden panel creaked open, revealing a narrow passage cloaked in darkness. Poirot's pulse quickened, not from fear but anticipation. He stepped forward, cane in hand, when a shadow moved within. A figure, human or otherwise, retreating into the gloom. "Who is there?" he called, his voice sharp. No answer came, only the echo of footsteps fading into the depths. Chapter 3. The hidden ledger, the hidden panel in the study wall, yawned open like a wound in the manor's ancient heart, its dark passage exhaling a chill that prickled Hercule Poirot's skin. The faint echo of retreating footsteps lingered in his ears, but the figure had vanished into the depths of Blackwood Manor. Dawn was breaking over the Devonshire moors, painting the sky a bruised purple, yet the oppressive fog clung to the estate, as if guarding its secrets. Poirot stood motionless, his cane poised, his little grey cells whirring with the implications of this discovery. A secret passage in a locked-room murder was no mere coincidence. It was a thread in the tapestry of treachery he was determined to unravel. Inspector Japp, summoned by Poirot's urgent knock, rubbed sleep from his eyes as he joined the detective. "Blimey, Poirot! A secret tunnel? This place gets queerer by the minute." "Queer, no," Poirot corrected, his voice crisp. "Logical. The locked room is no longer a mystery if there is another way in. But who knew of this passage, and why did they flee?" His green eyes gleamed with purpose as he stepped back into the study. The scene of Sir Reginald Blackwood's murder. The blood-stained rug, the Baron dagger case, and the faint lavender scent remained. But now the hidden panel added a new dimension to the puzzle. Poirot returned to the bookshelf where he had found the occult tome the previous day. His gloved fingers traced its edges again, and this time a slight pressure revealed a catch. With a soft click, a compartment slid open, revealing a dusty ledger bound in cracked leather. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, lifting it carefully. Its pages were filled with Sir Reginald's meticulous script, records of illicit transactions, bribes to business rivals, and most tellingly, a recent amendment to his will. The estate, previously split evenly between Lady Evelyn and Jonathan, now favoured the son almost entirely, with a mere pittance for the widow. Pause for 2 seconds. Emphasise the ledger's weighty discovery with a soft rustle of pages. Japp whistled low. "That's motive, Poirot. Lady Evelyn won't be pleased, and Jonathan's got a fortune riding on this." "Indeed," Poirot replied, his mind racing. "But knowledge of this ledger, did it reach the suspects before the murder? And this passage, it suggests a killer intimate with the manor's secrets." He closed the ledger, tucking it under his arm. "We must confront them, mon ami, and observe their faces." The drawing room was a crucible of tension as the suspects gathered, summoned by Japp's authoritative rap on their doors. Lady Evelyn sat ramrod straight, her morning dress pristine, her eyes narrowing as Poirot entered with the ledger. Jonathan lounged by the fireplace, his face pale, a fresh cigarette trembling in his hand. Victor Hargrove stood near the window, his burly frame tense, as if ready to bolt. Clara Winters, the maid, hovered near the tea-tray, her auburn hair slipping from its cap, her gaze fixed on the floor. Poirot held up the ledger, his voice measured but commanding. "Mesdames et messieurs, this book, hidden in Sir Reginald's study, reveals much. Transactions of dubious nature, yes, but also a new will, favouring Monsieur Jonathan. Who among you knew of this change?" Lady Evelyn's hand flew to her pearl brooch, her face draining of colour. "Reginald never told me," she said, her voice sharp as cut glass. "He promised we'd share everything. This is betrayal." Jonathan's cigarette fell to the rug unnoticed. "I swear I knew nothing of it. Father and I barely spoke. He thought me a wastrel, throwing money at cards." His eyes darted to Hargrove, suspicion flaring. "But you, Hargrove, you were always in his ear scheming." H paused for 2 seconds, let the accusations crackle in the air. Hargrove's face darkened, his fists clenching. "Don't pin this on me, boy. Reginald was the one cooking the books, siphoning funds from our company. I found out last month, confronted him in London. He laughed, said he'd ruin me before I could sue. But I didn't kill him. I was on the midnight train when he died. Check the tickets." Clara, silent until now, spoke softly, her voice barely audible. "Sir Reginald, he mentioned papers once, said they'd destroy someone close. I thought he meant Mr. Hargrove, but—" She trailed off, her eyes meeting Poirot's briefly before dropping again. Poirot's gaze lingered on her, noting the tremor in her hands. "Mademoiselle Clara, you are observant, no? Perhaps you saw more than you say." She flinched, but he pressed no further, instead turning to the group. "This ledger, it is a map of motives, greed, betrayal, revenge. But the method, the locked room, it requires knowledge of this house. Who among you knows its hidden ways?" Lady Evelyn's lips parted, then closed. "The manor is old," she said finally. "There are rumours of passages used by smugglers centuries ago, but only Reginald explored such things, obsessed with the curse." Jonathan scoffed. "If there's a passage, Mother, you'd know it. You've lived here longer than any of us." Hargrove grunted. "Or the maid. She's always creeping about, listening at doors." Clara gasped, her face crumpling. "I never. I only did my duties." Pause for 3 seconds, heighten the tension with Clara's distressed tone. Poirot raised a hand, silencing the bickering. "Enough! The passage exists, I have seen it, but its purpose in this crime, that we shall uncover." He did not mention the fleeing figure, choosing instead to let the suspects stew in their unease. His method was clear: plant doubt, observe reactions, deduce truth. As the morning progressed, Poirot and Japp explored the study further. The hidden passage, narrow and damp, led to a trapdoor in the cellar, but no footprints marked the dusty floor. "Clever," Poirot mused. "The killer knew this route, yet left no trace. Or did they?" He knelt, noticing a faint smudge of ash near the trapdoor. Cigarette ash, perhaps, like Jonathan's discarded stubs. Back in the study, Poirot examined the dagger case again. The velvet lining held a tiny snag of fabric. dark green like Hargrove's coat. A red herring, perhaps, planted to mislead, or evidence of carelessness? The lavender scent persisted, stronger near the desk. "This perfume," Poirot said to Japp. "It is a clue, but whose? Lady Evelyn wears it, yet Clara was here often." Japp scratched his head. "Could be either, or someone's trying to throw us off." "Précisément," Poirot agreed. "The killer weaves a web of deception, using the curse as a cloak." Pause for 2 seconds. Let the idea of deception linger. At luncheon, the atmosphere was stifling, the clink of cutlery like accusations. Poirot steered the conversation to the curse, probing for cracks in the suspect's facades. Lady Evelyn recounted its details with fervour. The dark mystery strikes the greedy, leaving no mark but death. Sir Alaric's journals speak of a shadow that moves unseen, punishing those who betray the family's honour. Jonathan rolled his eyes. Father believed that rot, and look where it got him. Someone used his obsession to kill him. Hargrove leaned forward, his voice low. Or someone in this room wanted his money and made it look like a curse. That ledger proves Reginald was no saint. Clara, serving silently, dropped a plate, her face ashen. I'm sorry," she whispered, fleeing to the kitchen. Poirot's eyes followed her, his mind cataloguing her fear. Was it guilt or something else? He excused himself, following her to the kitchen under the pretense of fetching water. "Mademoiselle," he said gently, "you are troubled. What do you fear?" She wrung her hands, tears welling. "It's the house, sir. Ever since the murder I hear things, whispers, scratches. Last night I saw a shadow in the corridor, near the study." "A shadow?" Poirot's tone was calm, but his mind raced. "Describe it. Tall, cloaked, gone in a moment. I thought, the curse." Her voice broke, and she turned away. Pause for 3 seconds. Let her fear build suspense for audio effect. Poirot returned to the dining room, his thoughts swirling. The shadow could be the figure from the passage, but was it human or a staged illusion? He resolved to inspect the grounds, suspecting the manor's exterior held clues. With Japp, he ventured to the stone circle in the garden, its ancient runes weathered but legible. They matched the sketches in Sir Reginald's tome, reinforcing the curse's mythology. "A distraction," Poirot muttered. "The killer uses this legend to cloud the truth." Back inside, Poirot gathered the suspects once more, revealing the passage's existence to gauge their reactions. Lady Evelyn paled, clutching her brooch. "Only Reginald knew such secrets," she insisted. Jonathan's eyes widened. "Then how did the killer find it, unless it's one of us?" Hargrove smirked. "Or the maid. She's got access to every nook." Clara, summoned back, shook her head vigorously. "I never knew of any passage, I swear." Poirot smiled faintly. "Yet someone did, and they used it to enter and exit unseen." He withheld the ash and fabric clues, letting the suspect squirm. As dusk fell, the manor's shadows grew longer, the fog pressing against the windows like a living thing. Poirot retired to the library, poring over the ledger again. A new entry caught his eye. A payment to an unnamed party, dated the day before the murder. Blackmail? A bribe? The plot thickened. Pause for 2 seconds, let the ledger's mystery deepen. Suddenly, a scream shattered the silence, piercing from the upper floors. Japp and Poirot raced upstairs, the suspects trailing behind. The sound came from Clara's room. They found her collapsed on the floor, a crumpled note in her hand, her face white with terror. Poirot knelt, reading the note aloud. "Beware the dark mystery It sees you." The handwriting mimicked Sir Reginald's, but the ink was fresh, the paper modern. "Another forgery," Poirot declared, his voice steady but his eyes blazing. "The killer plays a dangerous game." Lady Evelyn clutched Jonathan's arm, her voice trembling. "It's the curse," Hargrove scoffed. "Or someone wants us scared." Jonathan stared at Clara, his face unreadable. "She knows something. Why her room?" Poirot pocketed the note, his mind racing. The scream, the note, the shadow, were they distractions or clues to the killer's identity? As the group dispersed, he lingered, hearing a faint creak from the corridor. Someone was watching, listening. He stepped toward the sound, but the hallway was empty, save for a fleeting glimpse of a cloaked figure vanishing around the corner. Chapter 4. The Maid's Secret. The scream from Clara Winters's room still echoed in the corridors of Blackwood Manor, a shrill cry that seemed to claw at the very stones of the ancient estate. Hercule Poirot, his cane clicking against the polished floor, led the charge up the creaking staircase, Inspector Japp at his heels, and the suspects trailing in a flurry of whispers and footsteps. The fog outside pressed against the manor's windows, a grey shroud that mirrored the tension within. It was the second day of Poirot's investigation into Sir Reginald Blackwood's murder, and the discovery of a hidden passage and a forged note had tightened the web of suspicion around the household. They reached Clara's small attic room, its door ajar, the air heavy with the scent of lavender and fear. Clara lay crumpled on the floor, her auburn hair spilling from its cap, her hands clutching a crumpled note. Her eyes fluttered open as Poirot knelt beside her, his touch gentle, but his gaze piercing. "Mademoiselle Winters," he said softly, "you are safe. Tell Poirot what has happened." Clara's voice trembled, barely audible. I found this on my pillow." She gestured to the note, which Poirot smoothed out. Scrawled in a jagged imitation of Sir Reginald's hand, it read, "Beware the dark mystery, it sees you." The ink was fresh, the paper modern, a clear forgery designed to terrify. Poirot's moustache twitched, his mind cataloguing this new clue. Japp frowned, peering over Poirot's shoulder. "Another cursed note? Someone's playing a grim game, Poirot." "Oui, mon ami," Poirot replied, his tone calm but firm. "A game to distract or to warn? But who placed this, and why target the maid?" He helped Clara to a chair, noting her pallor and the way her hands shook as she smoothed her apron. "Pause for 2 seconds," emphasized Clara's distress with a soft whimper sound. The suspects crowded the doorway, their faces a gallery of shock and suspicion. Lady Evelyn Blackwood, her mourning dress pristine despite the hour, clutched her pearl brooch, her eyes blazing. "This is madness!" she cried. "Clara, what have you done to bring this curse upon us?" Jonathan Blackwood, his youthful face drawn, stepped forward. His voice sharp. "She's hiding something, Mother. Why her room? Why now?" Victor Hargrove, looming like a storm cloud, crossed his arms. "The girl's been skulking about since the murder. Knows more than she's letting on, I'd wager." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "I've done nothing, I swear. I only found the note. I don't know who left it." Her voice broke, and she buried her face in her hands. Poirot raised a hand, silencing the accusations. "Calm yourselves, Mademoiselle Clara. You will tell Poirot everything, in private." He gestured for the others to leave, and Japp ushered them out, grumbling about the manor's endless surprises. In the quiet of the attic room, Poirot sat opposite Clara, his expression kind but unyielding. "Mademoiselle, you are at the heart of this mystery, no? You see much, hear much. Speak now. What secret do you carry?" Clara hesitated, her fingers twisting her apron. Then, in a whisper, she confessed, "Sir Reginald, he was more than my employer. We were lovers." Her cheeks flushed scarlet, and she looked away. "He promised to leave Lady Evelyn, to take me away. He said he'd provide for me, but I never asked for it. I loved him." Pause for 3 seconds. Let the confession's weight settle, with a soft gasp effect. Poirot's eyes gleamed, but his voice remained gentle. "This is a grave secret, mademoiselle. Did others know?" "I don't think so," Clara said, her voice trembling. "But he was afraid. Kept saying someone was watching, plotting against him. The night he died, he asked me to bring his tea later than usual, said he had a meeting. I heard voices in the study, angry ones, before I screamed." Poirot leaned forward. "Voices? Whose?" "I couldn't tell," she admitted. "They were muffled, through the door, but one was deep, like Mr. Hargrove's." Before Poirot could press further, the door burst open. Lady Evelyn stood there, her face a mask of fury, having overheard Clara's confession. "You harlot!" she spat, her voice venomous. "You seduced my husband, and now you dare speak of it. You killed him for his promises, didn't you?" Clara shrank back, tears streaming. "No, my lady, I loved him. I'd never hurt him." Jonathan appeared behind his mother, his expression torn between shock and pity. "Father's affairs were no secret, mother, but, Clara, if you were in the study, you had motive and opportunity." Hargrove, lingering in the hall, laughed bitterly. "The maid's not clever enough to pull off a locked-room murder. But she's a fine distraction, eh? Someone's forging notes to keep us chasing ghosts." Poirot stood, his presence commanding the room. "Enough accusations! This note, it is a forgery, yes, but its purpose is clear, to sow fear and confusion. Mademoiselle Clara, you will remain under my protection. The truth, it is close." Pause for 2 seconds. Let Poirot's authority resonate. He examined the note again, noting its similarities to the one found at the murder scene. Same jagged script, same phrase invoking the dark mystery. But the ink's freshness suggested it was placed recently, perhaps by the fleeing figure from the passage. A red herring to divert attention, or a warning to silence Clara. Poirot led Japp back to the study, determined to uncover more about the passage. The hidden panel, now fully exposed, revealed a narrow tunnel, its walls damp and cobwebbed. Poirot lit a lantern, its flickering light casting eerie shadows as they descended. The passage wound beneath the manor, emerging at the cellar trapdoor, but a side branch led towards the garden. "This," Poirot said, "is how the killer entered and exited, unseen. But they knew the manor's secrets, intimately." Japp scratched his head. "So, someone in the family? Or Hargrove, maybe. He's been here often enough." "Perhaps," Poirot mused, noticing a faint scuff mark on the tunnel floor, too faint to identify. "But we need more. Evidence, not supposition." Returning to the study, Poirot examined the fireplace, where he had found a green fabric snag the previous day. Now, he noticed a faint burn mark on the grate, as if something had been hastily destroyed. "Ash," he said, collecting a sample. "Not from cigarettes, but paper perhaps. A letter. A clue burned to hide the truth." Pause for 2 seconds. Emphasize the discovery with a soft crackle of ash. He turned his attention to the desk, where the lavender scent lingered strongest. A small vial, tucked in a drawer, confirmed his suspicion. Lady Evelyn's perfume, but Clara had access to her mistress's belongings. Another ambiguity, deliberate or coincidental? At dinner, the tension was palpable, the clink of silverware like a countdown to confrontation. Poirot steered the conversation to alibis, probing for inconsistencies. Lady Evelyn claimed she was in her room, reading when the murder occurred. Jonathan reiterated his billiard room story, but his timeline wavered. Had he smoked one cigarette or two? Hargrove stuck to his London alibi, producing a creased train ticket, though Poirot noted its date was smudged. Clara, still shaken, said she was in the kitchen, alone, preparing tea. Poirot's method was relentless. Cross-reference, observe, deduce. He revealed the fabric snag, watching Hargrove's reaction. "Monsieur, this green thread matches your coat. Care to explain its presence in the study?" Hargrove's face reddened. "I was there 2 days before, arguing with Reginald. Must have caught on something. I left him alive, I swear." Jonathan sneered. "Convenient, Hargrove. You and father were at each other's throats." Lady Evelyn's eyes darted between them, her composure fraying. "This is intolerable. The curse is real. Why do you ignore it?" Poirot smiled faintly. "Madame, the curse is a story, woven by a human hand to obscure the truth. But the truth, it cannot hide forever." Pause for 3 seconds. Let Poirot's words hang, building anticipation. As the evening deepened, Poirot ventured to the garden, the stone circle looming in the fog. The runes, ancient and foreboding, seemed to pulse under his lantern's light. He found no new clues, but the circle's presence reinforced the curse's hold on the household's imagination, a perfect distraction for a cunning killer. Back inside, Poirot reviewed the ledger again, noting a cryptic entry. "CW. Payment for silence. Clara Winters? Blackmail, perhaps, tied to her affair?" He resolved to question her further, but the manor's oppressive silence was broken by a new sound, a thud from the library. Rushing to the source, Poirot found a heavy candelabrum toppled on the floor, its wax splattered like blood. No one was present, but a window stood ajar, the curtain fluttering in the night wind. Footprints, faint in the dew-soaked grass outside, led toward the moors but vanished into the fog. "Mon Dieu!" Poirot whispered, his heart quickening. "The killer grows bold." He returned to the drawing-room, where the suspects had gathered, drawn by the noise. Clara's eyes were wide with fear, Lady Evelyn's face pale, Jonathan's fists clenched, and Hargrove's expression unreadable. "Someone plays games with Hercule Poirot," the detective declared, his voice steely. "But games end, and truth emerges." As he spoke, a shadow flickered across the window. A tall, cloaked figure, gone in an instant. Lady Evelyn gasped, Jonathan swore, and Clara whimpered. Hargrove strode to the window, finding nothing but mist. "It's the curse," Lady Evelyn whispered. Poirot's eyes narrowed. "No, madame, it is a person, and they are close." But as he turned, a sharp creak echoed from the ceiling above, followed by a low, guttural moan that seemed to rise from the manor's very bones. Chapter 5. The Fallen Heir. The guttural moan that echoed through Blackwood Manor's rafters faded into a chilling silence, leaving the air thick with dread. Hercule Poirot stood in the drawing-room, his sharp eyes scanning the suspects' faces. Lady Evelyn's pale with terror, Jonathan's taut with defiance, Victor Hargrove's grimly stoic, and Clara Winters's tear-streaked with fear. The fog outside pressed against the manor's windows, a grey veil that seemed to trap the secrets within. It was the second night of Poirot's investigation into Sir Reginald Blackwood's murder, and the cloaked figure glimpsed moments ago, coupled with the eerie moan, had heightened the household's paranoia. Yet Poirot's little grey cells remained unswayed by superstition, focusing instead on the tangible threads of evidence weaving through the mystery. Inspector Japp, his face flushed from the rush upstairs, broke the silence. "Blimey, Poirot, this place is giving me the creeps. First a scream, now moans. What's next?" Poirot's moustache twitched, a sign of his mind's relentless churn. "Next, mon ami, we find the source of these theatrics. The killer seeks to frighten, to distract, but Hercule Poirot sees through such ruses." He turned to the suspects, his voice calm but commanding. "Return to your rooms, but stay vigilant. The truth, it is close." As the group dispersed, their footsteps echoing in the cavernous hall, Poirot lingered, his cane tapping rhythmically. He was about to follow Japp to the library when a new sound shattered the quiet, a heavy thud from the upper corridor, followed by a choked gasp. "Vite!" Poirot exclaimed, racing upstairs with Japp close behind. They found Jonathan Blackwood slumped against the wall outside his room, his face ashen, his hands clutching his throat. A silver tea tray lay overturned beside him, a porcelain cup shattered, its contents staining the rug with a bitter, acrid scent. Clara, emerging from her attic room, gasped and knelt beside him. "Mr. Jonathan! Oh no, what's happened?" Pause for 2 seconds. Emphasized the chaos with a clatter of the tray for audio effect. Japp checked Jonathan's pulse, his brow furrowing. "He's alive, but barely. Smells like poison. Arsenic, maybe. Poirot, this is attempted murder." Poirot's eyes narrowed as he examined the scene. The tea, meant for Jonathan, bore a faint metallic sheen, and a small vial, half hidden under the rug, confirmed Japp's suspicion. Arsenic, likely from the manor's old stores, used for rat poison in years past. "Someone knows this house too well," Poirot murmured, his gaze sweeping from Clara's trembling hands to the empty corridor. "Mademoiselle, who brought this tea?" Clara's voice quavered. "I did, sir, but I only poured it. I left it in the kitchen for a moment. Anyone could have tampered with it." Poirot nodded, filing away her words. He called for a doctor, and Japp carried Jonathan to his bed, where the young man stirred, coughing weakly. "Someone wants me dead," he rasped. "The curse! It's after the bloodline." Lady Evelyn, summoned by the commotion, clutched her son's hand, her composure shattered. "The dark mystery," she whispered, her eyes wild. "It struck Reginald, and now my boy." Hargrove, arriving last, leaned against the doorframe, his face unreadable. "Or someone's using that fairy tale to cover their tracks. The boy's got enemies, debts, bad bets." Clara, still kneeling, glared at Hargrove. "You'd know about enemies, sir. You were shouting at Sir Reginald the day before he died." Poirot raised a hand, silencing the accusations. "Enough. Monsieur Jonathan will recover, but we must act swiftly. This poison, it is no curse, it is human malice." He collected the vial and cup, noting a faint smudge on the rim, too indistinct for a fingerprint, but suggestive of carelessness. Pause for 2 seconds. Let the poison's menace settle with a soft clink of the vial. Back in the drawing room, Poirot gathered the suspects, his method systematic: observe reactions, test alibis, plant seeds of doubt. He held up the vial, his voice steady. "Arsenic from the manor's stores. Who among you had access to the cellar?" Lady Evelyn stiffened. "The cellar is locked. but Reginald kept keys in his study. Any of us could have taken them." Jonathan, propped up on a sofa, his face still pale, croaked, "I never went near the cellar. But Hargrove, he's been poking around, claiming he's inspecting the estate." Hargrove's eyes flashed. "Watch it, boy. I've got no reason to poison you. But you, with your gambling debts, maybe you staged this to look innocent." Clara's voice broke through, timid but firm. "Mr. Hargrove, you were in the kitchen earlier, near the tea tray. I saw you." Hargrove rounded on her. "You little sneak, spying, were you? What about your secrets, lover to a dead man?" Poirot's gaze sharpened, noting Clara's flush and Hargrove's defensiveness. "Mademoiselle Clara's affair, it is known, but this poison, it points to a deeper motive. Let us revisit the night of the murder. Monsieur Jonathan, you claim you were in the billiard room. Yet the ash in the passage, cigarette ash, matches your brand." Jonathan's face tightened. "I smoke everywhere. Doesn't mean I was skulking in tunnels." Lady Evelyn interjected, her voice sharp. "My son is no killer, but Clara, she had access to everything, including Reginald's tea that night." Clara shrank back, tears welling. "I only served him, my lady. I'd never harm anyone." Pause for 3 seconds. Heighten the tension with Clara's distressed tone. Poirot paced, his cane clicking rhythmically. The clues were mounting. The arsenic, accessible to all. The cigarette ash, linking to Jonathan. The green fabric snag pointing to Hargrove. The lavender scent tying to Lady Evelyn or Clara. The forged note in Clara's room, the secret passage, the ledger's revelations, all suggested a killer exploiting the manor's secrets and the curse's mythology. But a new suspicion gnawed at Poirot. What if Jonathan's poisoning was self-inflicted? A desperate bid for sympathy or to divert suspicion? To test this, Poirot visited the cellar where the arsenic was stored. The lock was intact, but a spare key hung in the butler's pantry, accessible to the household. Dust on the shelves showed recent disturbance, and a faint trace of lavender lingered. Another link to Lady Evelyn or Clara. Returning upstairs, he found a locket in Jonathan's room, tucked under a pillow, containing Clara's photograph. "Interesting," Poirot murmured. "A token of affection or a planted clue." Pause for 2 seconds. Emphasized the locket's discovery with a soft clink. He confronted Jonathan privately, holding up the locket. "Monsieur, this suggests a connection to Mademoiselle Clara. Care to explain?" Jonathan's eyes widened, then narrowed. "That's not mine. Someone must have put it there. Clara and we're not close. She was father's, not mine." Poirot nodded, unconvinced. The locket could be a red herring, meant to muddy the waters. He returned to the drawing room, where the suspects awaited, their faces etched with fatigue and fear. "The poison," he announced, "is a bold move, but clumsy. It narrows our focus. The killer is among us, growing desperate." Lady Evelyn clutched her brooch. Desperate enough to summon the curse? The dark mystery spares no one. Hargrove snorted. "Keep your fairy tales, Evelyn. Someone's playing us for fools." Clara, silent until now, whispered, "I saw the shadow again, near the library. It's watching us." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "A shadow, mademoiselle, or a person cloaked in deception? We shall see." Determined to trace the passage's full extent, Poirot and Japp ventured outside, following its garden exit. The trapdoor, hidden beneath a rose bush, was cunningly concealed, but fresh scratches on its hinges suggested recent use. Beyond, the moors stretched into the fog, and Poirot noticed faint tracks, boot prints, too large for Clara, possibly Hargrove's or Jonathan's. They led to the stone circle, where the ancient runes seemed to pulse in the twilight. "Mon Dieu," Poirot said, kneeling to examine a broken twig. "The curse is a myth, but its stage is real. Someone uses this place to frighten or to hide." Pause for 3 seconds. Let the moor's eerie quiet build suspense. Back inside, Poirot reviewed the ledger again, finding a new entry. JB, debts settled, £10,000. Jonathan's gambling debts, paid by his father? Or a bribe to silence him? The web of motives tightened. Lady Evelyn's jealousy over Clara's affair, Jonathan's financial desperation, Hargrove's business betrayal, Clara's secret love and possible blackmail. As night fell, the manor groaned under a rising wind. Poirot retired to his room, but sleep eluded him. The poison, the locket, the tracks, all pointed to a killer growing reckless. He lit a candle, its flame casting shadows that danced like spectres. Then, a soft creak outside his door made him freeze. He gripped his cane, stepping silently to the threshold. The corridor was empty, but a faint draught carried the scent of lavender, and something metallic like blood. Suddenly, a muffled cry echoed from the passage below, sharp and urgent. Poirot's heart quickened, not from fear but anticipation. "The killer moves," he whispered, hurrying towards the sound. At the passage's entrance, he saw a flicker of light. A lantern, perhaps, held by a figure retreating into the darkness. "Arrêtez!" he called, but the figure vanished, leaving only the echo of hurried steps and a chilling whisper. The dark mystery claims another. Chapter 6. Echoes in the tunnel. The whisper, the dark mystery claims another, hung in the air like a spectre, its echo fading into the damp stone walls of Blackwood Manor's secret passage. Hercule Poirot stood at the entrance, his lantern cast in a feeble glow into the darkness, his cane gripped tightly as the retreating footsteps of the mysterious figure grew faint. The fog outside clung to the manor like a shroud, amplifying the oppressive silence within. It was the third day of Poirot's investigation into Sir Reginald Blackwood's murder, and the attempted poisoning of Jonathan Blackwood, coupled with the cloaked figure's flight, had tightened the noose of suspicion around the household. Yet Poirot's little grey cells burned brightly, undeterred by the theatrical ploys of a cunning killer. Inspector Japp, panting from the dash to the passage, clutched his hat. "Blimey, Poirot, they're slipping through our fingers! Who was that?" Poirot's eyes gleamed in the lantern's light. "A person, mon ami, not a phantom. The killer grows reckless, leaving traces in their haste. We follow, but with caution." He stepped into the passage, the air cold and musty, smelling of earth and secrets. The tunnel, discovered the previous day, wound beneath the manor, connecting the study to the cellar and garden. Its stone walls bore faint scratches, as if tools or boots had scraped them recently, and a smudge of ash, cigarette ash like Jonathan's, marked the floor. The passage sloped downward, its narrow confines forcing Poirot to duck beneath low beams. Japp followed, muttering about the manor's cursed labyrinth. At a fork, one path led to the cellar trapdoor, the other toward the garden's rosebush exit. Poi capture. System. Poirot chose the garden path, his lantern revealing cobwebs and damp stone. The air grew fresher as they neared the exit, where the trapdoor lay hidden beneath thorny brambles. Poirot examined the hinges, scratched, recently used, but no new footprints marred the surrounding earth. "The killer is careful," he murmured, "but not invisible." Back inside, Poirot gathered the suspects in the drawing room, their faces a mix of exhaustion and dread. Lady Evelyn Blackwood sat rigidly, her mourning dress stark against her pale skin, her fingers clutching her pearl brooch. Jonathan, still weak from the arsenic poisoning, leaned against the mantel, his eyes bloodshot but defiant. Victor Hargrove stood by the window, his burly frame, adult tense, his gaze flickering to the fog beyond. Clara Winters, her auburn hair neatly pinned, poured tea with trembling hands, her eyes avoiding Poirot's. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice steady, "a secret passage explains the locked room. The killer entered Sir Reginald's study unseen, struck, and left the same way. But who knew of this passage?" Lady Evelyn's voice was sharp. "Only the family, Monsieur Poirot. It's an old smuggler's route, known to Blackwoods for generations. The curse, it uses such paths to strike." Jonathan snorted, wincing as he shifted. "Rubbish, Mother. The curse is a convenient excuse for murder. Someone in this room used that tunnel to kill Father." Hargrove's gravelly voice cut in. "Don't look at me, boy. I knew of the passage. Reginald bragged about it during a deal, but I was in London. My ticket proves it." Clara's cup rattled on its saucer. I used it once, to bring Sir Reginald his tea privately. He showed me the entrance, but I swear I never used it that night." Poirot's eyes narrowed, catching her flush. "Mademoiselle, your honesty is noted, but the truth, it hides in the shadows." He produced a folded paper, a forged will found in the study's hidden drawer, favouring Hargrove over Jonathan. "This document, it suggests a motive for Monsieur Hargrove. A partnership betrayed, perhaps?" Hargrove's face reddened. "That's a fake! Reginald would never cut me in. He was bleeding me dry. I'd have sued him, not killed him." Lady Evelyn gasped. "A forgery, but why?" Jonathan's eyes blazed. To frame Hargrove, maybe, or to distract from the real killer, someone desperate for the estate. His gaze lingered on Clara, then his mother. Pause for 3 seconds. Let the accusations crackle in the air. Poirot paced, his cane clicking rhythmically. His method was meticulous. Plant doubt, observe reactions, deduce. The forged will was a red herring, its ink too fresh, its language stilted. The real will favouring Jonathan was in the ledger. But the passage's existence shifted the puzzle. Only someone intimate with the manor could navigate it undetected. He turned to Japp, lowering his voice. "The ash in the passage, it matches Jonathan's cigarettes. The lavender scent, it could be Lady Evelyn's or Clara's. The fabric snag, Hargrove's coat. Each clue points, yet none convict." Japp nodded. "We need more, fingerprints, a witness." "Non," Poirot said. "The killer's mistake is in their theatrics, the notes, the shadows. They overplay their hand." Returning to the passage, Poirot examined the smudged latch of the study's hidden panel. No clear fingerprints, but a faint oily residue suggested gloves, leather perhaps like Hargrove's. The tunnel's garden exit showed more scratches, and a single rose petal lay crushed nearby, its fragrance mingling with the fog's dampness. A woman, perhaps? Poirot mused, thinking of Clara's duties in the garden. Pause for 2 seconds. Let the petal's discovery linger with a soft rustle. At luncheon, the tension was palpable, the clink of cutlery like a countdown to revelation. Poirot probed further, testing alibis. Lady Evelyn claimed she was in her room, but her maid's absence that night left it unverified. Jonathan's billiard room story wavered, his cigarette count inconsistent. Hargrove's train ticket was smudged, its authenticity questionable. Clara's kitchen alibi was solitary, her affair with Sir Reginald a motive for jealousy or betrayal. Poirot introduced a new clue. A burned scrap of paper in the study's grate, its edges revealing a single word: betrayal. This, he said, holding it up, was meant to be destroyed. Who feared exposure? Lady Evelyn's hand trembled. Reginald wrote of betrayal in his diary. He suspected everyone. Me, Jonathan, even Hargrove. Jonathan's face darkened. He was paranoid, Mother, but maybe he was right about you. Hargrove laughed harshly. Or the maid. She was closer to him than any of us. Clara's eyes filled with tears. I loved him. I'd never betray him. Poirot's gaze softened, but his mind was relentless. The scrap, the forged will, the passage, all pointed to a calculated plan cloaked in the curse's mythology. The lavender scent, omnipresent, suggested a woman, but the oily residue hinted at a man's gloves. A partnership, perhaps. Pause for 3 seconds. Heighten the tension with Clara's emotional plea. As evening fell, Poirot set a trap, announcing he would sleep in the study to tempt the curse. He instructed Japp to watch the passage's exits, hoping to catch the killer in action. The manor grew quiet, the fog thicker, the air heavy with anticipation. Poirot sat at Sir Reginald's desk, a single candle burning, his senses alert. The lavender scent lingered, fainter now, as if diluted by time. At midnight, a soft creak echoed from the passage. Poirot extinguished the candle, his hand on his cane, his breath steady. The panel slid open, and a shadow emerged, tall, cloaked, silent. Poirot lunged, his cane striking the figure's arm, eliciting a muffled cry. But the shadow was swift, retreating into the tunnel before Japp could reach the cellar exit. Pause for 2 seconds. Emphasize the struggle with a sharp clatter of the cane. Japp burst in, panting. Lost him in the fog! But I heard a man's voice, low, angry. Poirot nodded, his heart racing with triumph. A man, perhaps, but the scent of lavender clings. The killer is not alone. He examined the floor. A fresh scuff mark and a dropped glove. Leather, monogrammed with V.H. Hargroves, or another plant. Returning to the drawing room, Poirot confronted the suspects, holding up the glove. This was left by our shadow. Monsieur Hargrove, explain. Hargrove paled. That's mine, but I lost it days ago. Someone's framing me. Lady Evelyn's eyes widened. The curse! It manipulates objects, people. Jonathan gripped his mother's arm. Stop it, Mother. It's one of us, not a ghost. Clara whimpered. I saw the shadow again, outside my window. Poirot's smile was grim. The shadow is human, mademoiselle, and they are desperate. He withheld the glove's significance, letting fear work its magic. As the clock struck 1, Poirot retired, but not to sleep. He reviewed the clues, the glove, the ash, the petal, the forged notes. The killer used the passage, the curse, and the manor's secrets to orchestrate a perfect crime. But perfection was crumbling. Too many clues, too many mistakes. Suddenly, the lights flickered and died, plunging the manor into darkness. A sharp gasp echoed from the hall, followed by a heavy thud. Poirot grabbed his lantern, rushing towards the sound, his pulse quickening. In the corridor, a figure lay sprawled, a cloaked shadow unmoving, a dagger gleaming beside them. The scent of lavender was overwhelming, and a single word was scratched into the floor. Traitor. Chapter 7. The Phantom Attack. The sudden darkness that engulfed Blackwood Manor was as suffocating as the fog pressing against its ancient walls. The thud of a fallen figure, the glint of a dagger, and the word traitor scratched into the corridor floor sent a chill through the air. sharper than the November frost outside. Hercule Poirot, lantern in hand, knelt beside the cloaked figure sprawled in the hallway, his heart steady despite the manor's oppressive gloom. It was the third night of his investigation into Sir Reginald Blackwood's murder, and the web of clues, secret passages, forged notes, poisoned tea, and now this attack, tightened around the suspects. The scent of lavender lingered, mingling with the metallic tang of fear, as Poirot's little grey cells worked to pierce the veil of deception. Inspector Japp, breathless from his sprint through the manor, joined Poirot, his lantern casting jagged shadows. "Blimey, Poirot, another victim. Is it the killer or the curse?" Poirot's eyes gleamed in the flickering light as he gently turned the figure's face. It was Clara Winters, her auburn hair dishevelled, her face pale but breathing. The cloak, too large for her slight frame, was one of Sir Reginald's, taken from his wardrobe. The dagger, identical to the murder weapon, lay inches from her hand, its blade clean. "Not a victim, mon ami," Poirot said, his voice calm but firm. "An assailant, perhaps, or a pawn in a larger game." Clara stirred, her eyes fluttering open, wide with terror. "Monsieur Poirot!" "I didn't mean—" Her voice broke and she clutched at the cloak, trembling. "I only wanted to scare you away. I'm so afraid!" Poirot helped her to a nearby chair, his gaze piercing but kind. "Mademoiselle, why this charade? The cloak, the dagger, the attack. Explain." Clara's tears spilled over. "I heard you in the study, saying you'd sleep there to catch the killer. I thought, if I frightened you, you'd leave. I didn't want you to find out." She hesitated, her hands twisting the cloak's hem. "Find out what?" Poirot pressed, his tone unrelenting. Before she could answer, the suspects arrived, drawn by the commotion. Lady Evelyn Blackwood, her morning dress impeccable despite the hour, gasped at the sight of Clara. "You treacherous girl! First my husband, now this?" Jonathan Blackwood, still pale from his poisoning, clenched his fists. "She's been playing us all along, Mother. That locket in my room, she planted it." Victor Hargrove, his burly frame filling the doorway, snorted. "Or she's covering for someone else. That glove you found, Poirot, it's mine, but I didn't drop it in the passage. She's got access to everything." Poirot raised a hand, silencing them. "Mademoiselle Clara, speak. The truth, it is your only refuge." Clara's voice was barely a whisper. I took the cloak from Sir Reginald's room. I found the dagger in the library, hidden behind a book. I thought if I mimicked the curse, you'd think it was real and stop asking questions. I'm so scared. Someone's watching, leaving notes, trying to kill Mr. Jonathan." Poirot's eyes narrowed, and the word traitor scratched here. "You're doing?" She shook her head vigorously. "No, sir. It was there when I fell. I tripped in the dark." Pause for 3 seconds. Let her denial hang. Build in suspense. Japp examined the scratched word, his lantern revealing jagged marks, fresh but imprecise, as if made in haste. "Could be her, Poirot, or someone setting her up. This is getting murkier by the minute." Poirot nodded, his mind racing. Clara's attack was feeble, theatrical, a diversion perhaps to protect herself or another. The dagger, identical to the murder weapon, suggested a killer reusing their tools. The word traitor echoed Sir Reginald's letter, hinting at betrayal. But whose? He escorted Clara to the drawing room, where the suspects gathered, their faces etched with suspicion. Poirot's method was clear. Press the weak link, observe the cracks. Mademoiselle Clara's actions, They are foolish but revealing. Someone uses fear to control this house. Let us revisit the night of the murder. Madam Blackwood, your alibi. You were in your room, alone. Yet the lavender scent in the study, it is yours, non? Lady Evelyn's hand flew to her brooch, her composure fraying. I wear lavender, yes, but so do half the women in England. I was nowhere near the study that night. Jonathan's eyes flashed. Mother, you were in the garden earlier that day. I saw you near the stone circle. What were you doing? Lady Evelyn's face tightened. I was tending the roses, nothing more. You, Jonathan, were skulking about, smoking your endless cigarettes. That ash in the passage, it's yours. Hargrove laughed bitterly. You're all pointing fingers, but the maid's the key. She knew the passage, had access to the dagger, and now she's playing the victim. Clara sobbed. I only wanted to protect myself. Someone left that note in my room. They know what I did with Sir Reginald. Pause for 2 seconds. Let Clara's desperation resonate. Poirot paced, his cane clicking rhythmically. The clues were piling up. Clara's staged attack, the second dagger, the scratched word, the persistent lavender scent. The passage, the forged will, the arsenic, the glove, all pointed to a conspiracy, perhaps involving more than one. He decided to test Lady Evelyn's alibi further, recalling her maid's absence that night. He questioned the staff, learning that Lady Evelyn had dismissed her maid early on the murder night, claiming a headache. Interesting, Poirot murmured to Japp. She was alone, unwatched, near the garden where the passage exits. Japp nodded. And Jonathan, his poisoning could be a stunt. That locket in his room smells like a plant. Oui, Poirot agreed. But Hargrove's glove, the fabric snag, too convenient. Someone orchestrates these clues to mislead. Returning to the study, Poirot examined the fireplace again, where the burned betrayal scrap was found. A new discovery caught his eye. A tiny shred of fabric, green like Hargrove's coat, but singed as if someone tried to destroy it. Another attempt to frame, he mused, pocketing it. Pause for 2 seconds. Emphasize the fabric's discovery with a soft rustle. At dinner the atmosphere was electric with distrust. Poirot steered the conversation to motives, probing deeper. Monsieur Hargrove, Sir Reginald's ledger shows payments to silence someone, possibly you for his financial misdeeds. Hargrove's face darkened. He owed me millions, yes, but I didn't need to kill him. I'd have taken him to court. Jonathan scoffed. You'd have lost, Hargrove. Father was too clever for you. Lady Evelyn's voice was icy. Enough, both of you. The curse punishes greed, Reginald's, and perhaps yours. Clara, serving silently, dropped a glass, her face ashen. I heard whispers again in the passage. She whispered to Poirot later, in the kitchen. Someone was there, watching. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Describe these whispers, mademoiselle. Low, angry, like Sir Reginald's voice, but impossible, she said, trembling. It said, you'll pay. Pause for 3 seconds. Let the ghostly whisper build suspense. Determined to unravel the passage's secrets, Poirot and Japp explored its garden exit again. The rose bush concealed fresh scratches, and a faint trail of dirt led to the stone circle. There, a small bundle caught Poirot's eye. Parchment, hidden beneath a rune, bearing Sir Reginald's initials and a sketch of the passage. A map, Poirot said, known to the killer. Back inside, Poirot confronted the suspects, revealing the map. This proves the passage was no secret to Sir Reginald, and perhaps others who else knew. Lady Evelyn paled. Only Reginald explored such things. He was obsessed with the manor's history. Jonathan's eyes darted. I knew of it, but never used it. Father showed me as a boy. Hargrove shrugged. He mentioned it once, drunk on brandy. Didn't think it real. Clara's voice was faint. He showed me to keep our meeting secret. Poirot's smile was grim. So all had knowledge, the net titans. He withheld the singed fabric, letting them stew. As midnight approached, Poirot set another trap, announcing he'd guard the passage entrance. He stationed Japp at the cellar, his own lantern dimmed in the study. The manor was silent, save for the wind's low moan. Then a soft creak from the passage, followed by a shadow moving swiftly. Poirot sprang forward, his cane raised, but the figure was faster, a blade flashing in the dark. He dodged, the knife grazing his sleeve, and the shadow fled, leaving a faint scent of lavender and a single chilling laugh. Chapter 8. Shots in the Mist. The chilling laugh of the cloaked figure faded into the darkness of Blackwood Manor's secret passage, leaving Hercule Poirot with a torn sleeve and a racing mind. The knife's graze had been close, too close, yet it only sharpened his resolve. The fog outside clung to the manor like a conspirator, muffling the world beyond, while within the air crackled with suspicion. It was the fourth day of Poirot's investigation into Sir Reginald Blackwood's murder, and the mounting clues, forged notes, poisoned tea, a staged attack by Clara, and now a knife in the dark, pointed to a killer growing desperate. Poirot's little grey cells whirred, weaving the threads of evidence into a pattern that was almost but not quite complete. Inspector Japp burst into the study, his lantern swinging wildly. "Poirot, you all right? That was no ghost. Someone's trying to shut you up." Poirot adjusted his torn sleeve, his voice calm but steely. "Oui, mon ami, but they have underestimated Hercule Poirot. The knife, it was a warning, but also a mistake. They left a trace, the scent of lavender toujours." He gestured to the passage entrance, where the air carried that familiar perfume, now tinged with a metallic edge. Japp shook his head. "Lavender again. That's Lady Evelyn, or Clara. But that laugh, it sounded male, like Hargrove." "Perhaps," Poirot mused, his eyes gleaming. "But we must not assume. The killer plays many roles." He examined the passage floor, finding a fresh scuff mark and a single drop of wax, as if from a candle dropped in haste. "They fled to the garden, I think. Let us pursue." They hurried to the garden exit, the trapdoor beneath the rosebush creaking as they lifted it. The fog was thicker now, a grey wall that swallowed the moors. Poirot's lantern revealed faint boot prints, large and heavy, leading toward the stone circle. A man's boots, he noted, but the lavender suggests a woman's touch. A partnership, perhaps. Pause for 2 seconds. Emphasize the boot prints with a soft crunch sound. Before they could follow further, a sharp crack split the air. A gunshot, echoing from the moors. Japp drew his revolver, and Poirot's hand tightened on his cane. They raced toward the sound, finding Victor Hargrove staggering from the fog, clutching his arm, blood seeping through his fingers. "Someone shot at me," he roared, his face pale with pain and fury. "From the stones! Damn near killed me!" Poirot knelt beside him, examining the wound. "A graze, monsieur? Not fatal. But tell me, why were you on the moors at this hour?" Hargrove grimaced, his voice rough. "Couldn't sleep. Needed air. Then bang! Someone's tying up loose ends." Japp scanned the fog, revolver ready. "No one's out there now. Poirot, this is getting out of hand." Poirot's eyes narrowed. No, it is coming into focus. The shot, it is another piece of the puzzle. He collected a spent bullet casing from the grass, its caliber matching Sir Reginald's antique pistol, missing since the murder. The killer uses the victim's own weapon, a bold choice. Pause for 2 seconds. Let the gunshot's echo linger with a metallic clink. Back in the drawing room, the suspects gathered roused by the shot. Lady Evelyn Blackwood, her mourning dress slightly askew, clutched her pearl brooch, her eyes wide. The curse strikes again! First Reginald, then Jonathan, now Mr. Hargrove. Jonathan, still weak from his poisoning, leaned against the wall, his face grim. It's not a curse, Mother. Someone's targeting us all. Hargrove, what were you really doing out there? Hargrove, his arm bandaged by Clara, glared. I told you, getting air. You'd know about sneaking around, boy, with your cigarette ash all over that passage. Clara, her hands trembling as she poured tea, whispered, I heard the shot from my window. I saw a shadow near the stones, tall, cloaked. Poirot's gaze sharpened. A shadow, mademoiselle? The same you saw before? She nodded, her eyes darting to Lady Evelyn, then away. He held up the bullet casing, his voice commanding. This bullet, it comes from Sir Reginald's pistol, missing since his death. The killer is among us, using fear and the curse to mask their crimes. But fear betrays them. Lady Evelyn's voice trembled. The dark mystery, it moves unseen, striking the guilty. Jonathan scoffed. Or someone wants us to believe that. Clara, you've been seeing shadows everywhere. Maybe you're the one pulling the trigger. Clara gasped, dropping a cup. I'd never. I'm terrified, Mr. Jonathan. Hargrove's eyes narrowed. She's got access to everything, tea, daggers, passages. And that affair with Reginald, motive enough. Poirot raised a hand, silencing the accusations. Enough. The shot, it was a blank. He revealed the casing's interior, empty of powder. A theatrical gesture, like Clara's attack, meant to frighten, not kill. The killer tests our resolve. Pause for 3 seconds. Let the revelation of the blank shot resonate. Japp's jaw dropped. A blank? So, Hargrove's lying about being shot. No, Poirot said. The blood is real, but the wound shallow, a graze, perhaps self-inflicted or staged with another's help. The killer weaves a complex web. Poirot's method was relentless. Cross-reference clues, test alibis, deduce. He revisited the clues. The lavender scent, now tied to Lady Evelyn and Clara. The cigarette ash, pointing to Jonathan. The green fabric and glove. Implicating Hargrove. The passage map, known to all. The forged notes and blank shot, designed to mislead. The killer was orchestrating a performance, using the curse as a script. He questioned Hargrove privately, probing his alibi. Monsieur, your train ticket was smudged, your glove found in the passage, and now a shot from Sir Reginald's pistol. Explain. Hargrove's face tightened. I told you, I lost that glove. The ticket's real. Check the station. As for the pistol, I didn't even know Reginald had one. Poirot nodded, unconvinced. He turned to Lady Evelyn, noting her nervous fingers. Madam, your lavender perfume is everywhere. Study, passage, now the moors. And your alibi, it is unverified. Her eyes flashed. I am no murderer, Monsieur Poirot. I was in my room, grieving my husband. Jonathan interrupted, his voice sharp. Grieving or plotting? You hated father's affairs. Clara's not the only one he strayed with. Clara's face crumpled. I didn't want to hurt anyone, but someone knows. Those notes, they're warning me. Pause for 2 seconds. Let the accusations crackle in the air. Poirot paced, his cane clicking rhythmically. A new clue emerged in his mind. The stone circle, a stage for the killer's theatrics. He ventured there with Japp, finding a hidden hollow beneath a rune, containing a locket, not Clara's, but one with Lady Evelyn's initials, containing a photo of Hargrove. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured. An affair, perhaps, betrayed by Sir Reginald's discovery. Back inside, he confronted Lady Evelyn privately. "Madam, this locket suggests a connection to Monsieur Hargrove. Care to explain?" Her face paled, but she recovered quickly. "A gift from years ago, nothing more. Reginald knew, and we reconciled." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Yet he changed his will, cutting you out, and the lavender, it follows you." She clutched her brooch, silent. Poirot let the accusation hang, knowing pressure would crack her facade. At dinner, the tension was palpable, the clink of silverware like a countdown. Poirot revealed the locket, watching reactions. Hargrove's jaw tightened, Jonathan's eyes widened, and Clara's hands shook. "The killer uses personal ties to sow discord," Poirot said, "but the truth emerges through logic." He reviewed the evidence. The passage allowed entry. The dagger was from Sir Reginald's collection. The notes were forged, the shot a blank. Motives clarified. Lady Evelyn's affair with Hargrove, discovered by Sir Reginald. Jonathan's gambling debts, cut off by his father. Clara's pregnancy, a secret heir threatening the estate. Hargrove's financial ruin, blocked by Sir Reginald's schemes. As midnight approached, Poirot set a final trap, announcing he'd examine the passage map in the library. He stationed Japp at the garden exit, his own lantern dimmed. The manor was silent, save for the wind's moan. Then a soft creak from the passage, followed by a whisper, "You're too close." A figure lunged, not with a knife, but a heavy candlestick, aiming for Poirot's head. He dodged, the candlestick crashing to the floor, and the figure fled, leaving a single damning clue. A woman's handkerchief, embroidered with EB. Chapter 9. The breaking point. The handkerchief embroidered with EB lay on the drawing-room table, like a guillotine's blade. Its delicate lace edges frayed from Lady Evelyn Blackwood's nervous grip earlier that evening. Hercule Poirot stood before the assembled suspects, his green eyes gleaming with the certainty of triumph. The fog outside Blackwood Manor had lifted slightly, as if the Moors themselves anticipated the unveiling of truth. It was the 5th morning of the investigation, and the weight of accumulated clues, the passage, the scents, the planted evidence, had become too heavy for even the most composed facade to bear. Inspector Japp flanked Poirot, handcuffs at the ready, his face flushed with anticipation. The suspects sat in a tense semicircle. Lady Evelyn rigid and pale, Jonathan slumped with weary shock, Victor Hargrove brooding like a cornered beast, and Clara Winters huddled, tears streaking her face. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice resonant and inexorable, "the dark mystery is unmasked. It is no spectral force, but a conspiracy born of human frailty, greed, jealousy, and betrayal." Lady Evelyn's composure shattered first. She rose unsteadily, her pearl brooch slipping to the floor. "I couldn't bear it any longer," she cried, her voice breaking like fine china. "Reginald discovered my affair with Victor. He threatened divorce, disinheritance, everything. I didn't wield the dagger, but I wished him dead 1,000 times." Jonathan recoiled. "Mother, you and Hargrove!" Hargrove snarled, rising to his feet. "She's lying to save her skin. I argued with Blackwood. Yes, over the millions he stole from our partnership. But I left him alive." Poirot shook his head, producing the monogrammed glove from his pocket. "Non, monsieur. You entered via the secret passage at 11:45 p.m. Sir Reginald let you in, believing you came to negotiate. The argument escalated. You grabbed the antique dagger from his desk and plunged it into his chest." Hargrove's face strained of colour. "How? The proof," Poirot continued relentlessly, "is in the minutiae. The oily residue on the passage latch matches your leather gloves. Tunnel dust clings to the soles of your boots, invisible to the casual eye, but not to Hercule Poirot. You wiped the blade, scrawled the curse note in his blood. Your handwriting, analysed by experts, matches precisely." Lady Evelyn collapsed into her chair, weeping. "I helped cover it up. I entered after, using the passage, bolted the door from inside, and exited the same way. The lavender scent? Mine, from nerves. I spilled my perfume in panic." Clara's sobs grew louder. I knew. Victor promised me money for my baby, Sir Reginald's child. I planted the locket in Jonathan's room, forged one note. Forgive me, Jonathan stared in horror. All of you. Father trusted you. Pause for 3 seconds. Let the collective confessions build dramatic weight. Poirot paced, his cane clicking like a metronome of justice. The red herrings were masterful. Jonathan's self-inflicted poisoning for sympathy. The blank shot Hargrove fired into his own arm. The shadows and whispers staged by Clara. But logic prevailed. The scent mismatch. Lady Evelyn's expensive lavender versus Clara's cheap imitation betrayed the note's author. The scratched lock on the study door, made by Hargrove's ring during his hasty entry. Japp snapped cuffs on Hargrove, who slumped in defeat. It was perfect until you came. Lady Evelyn extended her wrists, whispering, The curse broke us. No, madame, Poirot replied softly. Your own darkness did that. As the constables arrived, the manor seemed to sigh in relief, the oppressive atmosphere lifting with the fog. Jonathan, cleared of suspicion, embraced Clara tentatively, murmuring of atonement. Poirot stepped outside, breathing the crisp air. The case was solved. Hargrove the killer, aided by Lady Evelyn and Clara. Yet, as he turned back, a faint scratching echoed from the study wall. The passage, Mon Dieu, he murmured, was one thread still loose? Chapter 10. Light in the Darkness. The faint scratching from Blackwood Manor's study wall lingered in Hercule Poirot's ears. A final whisper of doubt in an otherwise resolved mystery. The dawn light filtered through the lifting fog, casting a golden glow over the Devonshire moors, as if the manor itself exhaled in relief. It was the 5th morning of Poirot's investigation, and the confessions of Victor Hargrove, Lady Evelyn Blackwood, and Clara Winters had unravelled the tangled web of Sir Reginald Blackwood's murder. Yet that persistent sound gnawed at Poirot's meticulous mind, urging one last inspection before he declared the case closed. Poirot stood in the drawing-room, his polished cane gleaming, his green eyes scanning the remaining players. Jonathan Blackwood, cleared of suspicion, sat with a weary but hopeful expression. Inspector Japp, ever loyal, adjusted his hat, ready to escort the guilty to justice. Hargrove, handcuffed, glowered in silence, while Lady Evelyn, her elegance diminished, stared at the floor, her wrists bound. Clara, tearful but relieved, clutched a handkerchief, her confession having lightened her burden. Mesdames et messieurs, Poirot began, his voice resonant with finality, the dark mystery is no more. It was never a curse, but a fiction crafted by human greed and betrayal. Allow Hercule Poirot to illuminate the truth. He paced, his cane clicking like a metronome of justice. Monsieur Hargrove, driven by financial ruin, entered the study via the secret passage at 11:45 p.m. Sir Reginald, expecting a business discussion, admitted him. But Hargrove, enraged by Blackwood's deceit, millions siphoned from their partnership, seized the antique dagger from the desk and struck. He wiped the blade, forged the blood-scrawled note to invoke the curse, and exited through the passage, bolting the door from within to create the illusion of a locked room. Hargrove's shoulders slumped, his defiance gone. "He deserved it," he muttered, earning a sharp glance from Japp. "Pause for 2 seconds. Emphasize Hargrove's admission with a low grunt." Poirot continued, undeterred. "Madame Blackwood, you discovered the body shortly after, entering via the passage you knew from family law. In panic, you spilled your lavender perfume, leaving its scent. You aided Hargrove by ensuring the door remained bolted, hoping to protect your own secrets, your affair with him, which Sir Reginald had uncovered." Lady Evelyn's voice was a whisper. "I loved Victor, but I never meant for this." "And Mademoiselle Clara," Poirot said, turning to the maid, "you, pregnant with Sir Reginald's child, were coerced by Hargrove's promise of money. You planted the locket in Jonathan's room, forged a second note to Sophia, and staged your cloaked attack to divert suspicion, but your conscience betrayed you." Clara nodded, tears falling. "I wanted a future for my baby. I'm so sorry." Jonathan, his face softening, reached for her hand. "You're not alone anymore, Clara." Pause for 2 seconds. Let the emotional reconciliation resonate with a soft sob. Poirot's gaze softened, but his mind returned to the scratching. He led Japp to the study, determined to tie the final thread. The hidden panel, now familiar, creaked open, revealing the passage. The scratching was louder, rhythmic, coming from a loose stone near the entrance. With Japp's help, Poirot pried it free, uncovering a small cache. A diary in Sir Reginald's hand, its final entry reading, "The shadow is no curse, it is my own kin plotting my end." "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured. Sir Reginald knew of betrayal, but not its extent. The scratching, he realized, was merely a loose pipe, disturbed by the manor's settling. No ghost, no lingering threat, just the house's aging bones. Pause for 3 seconds. Let the diary's revelation settle with a soft rustle of pages. Returning to the drawing room, Poirot shared the diary's contents, dispelling the last vestiges of the curse's myth. Sir Reginald's paranoia was justified, but his shadow was human. Hargrove, aided by Lady Evelyn and Clara. The whispers, the shadows, the blank shot, all were theatrics to mask their guilt. Japp clapped Poirot's shoulder. "You've done it again, old chap. A locked room, a curse, and you cracked it with logic." Poirot twirled his moustache, a rare smile breaking through. "The little grey cells, they triumph over darkness. The manor is free of its shadows." As constables led Hargrove and Lady Evelyn away, Clara remained, her fate uncertain but her spirit lighter. Jonathan vowed to support her, his inheritance secure. The manor's oppressive air lifted, its Gothic spires no longer menacing under the rising sun. Poirot stepped onto the gravel drive, the moors stretching before him, now serene. The dark mystery, he said to Japp, was but a tale of human failings, greed, love, betrayal. Yet, in their unravelling, we find light. As he boarded his taxi, a final breeze stirred the roses, carrying no whispers, only silence. Blackwood Manor stood quiet, its secrets laid bare, its justice served.